Hello, I'm Rabbi Joel Alter of Congregation Beth Israel Ner Tamid in Milwaukee with shorter hair and a bigger kippah. And my message this week is directed toward all the people, kids, teens, college students, adult staff, all the people who expected to be at camp or other summer programs this summer and have learned in the last days or weeks that camp and all those other programs are not happening this year. And I want to tell you how sad I am with you and for you. Really, tears in my eyes sad. I get it. I get it because I'm a camp person. Camp made me who I am, and I love camp. I'm sad for you because I know that camp is a place where you can be yourself in a uniquely full way. You can be a friend. You can be a Jew. You can be a responsible person. You can be a brave person. You can be a courageous and risk-taking person in a safe and bold and wonderful way that's different from what you can be and do anyplace else. It's different from what you are and who you are at home. It's different from who and what you are at school, at shul, wherever you are, because camp is magic. And I'm so sorry that camp is not happening this summer. So this is for all of you, whether you were expecting to be at Tavor this summer, or at Interlaken, or at Bieber, or at Rainbow Day Camp, whether you were expecting to be at Ramah, up in Conover, or the day camp, whether you were expecting to be out in the Rockies, whether you were on the BBYO programs or USY, to all of you, I'm so sorry that that world is suspended for this summer. Now, it's a funny week for this news to come down that camp isn't happening this year, because in this week's Parashat Bamidbar, we learn from the Torah of how the 12 tribes were arranged in their encampments around the Ohel Moed, around the tent of meeting, the Mishkan, that was God's place in the center of the camp. And all the tribes were organized around God's place. Their place was in proximity to, in relationship to God's place, to the Torah, to their Jewish place. We learn that on the east of the Ohel was Judah, were Judah and Issachar and Zvulun, and on the south were Ruvain and Shimon and Gad, and on the west were Ephraim and Manasseh and Binyamin, and on the north were Dan and Asher and Naphtali. And their placement, their arrangement around the Mishkan, around the Ohel Moed, was important because it signals, it tells us plainly that their lives out there in the wilderness were for a purpose. Their lives were about their relationship to each other as Jews, because their time, our time in the wilderness, our time at camp, was preparation for us in learning how to live as Jews, how to live in relationship to one another, how to live with God in the world. Now, the funny thing about our time in the wilderness is that it was its own world. After all, we spent 40 years there. That's a lifetime. It was its own world, and it was real life. And at the same time, the time out in the wilderness was preparation for life in the land, for the world they were going to. And the same is true for our time at camp. People love to say, oh, camp isn't the real world. And I never thought that was true. I always thought camp is the real world. It's just a really perfect version of the real world. And not only because we get to be louder and messier than we get to be anyplace else, aside from the fact that we get more sun and more time to play and more time to sing and more time to eat maybe the foods that we really like to eat. No, camp really is the real world. It is its own place where special rules apply, but those are the rules that we want to take with us into the rest of our lives. And at the same time, camp is preparation for the rest of our lives. And we know that because at the end of every summer, on every one of these, at every one of these camps and programs, someone asks everyone else, now how do we make the rest of our lives more like camp? How do we take what we learn here and bring it into our outside lives? And this summer, the summer of 2020, when you don't get to go to camp, we're going to have to take that lesson without the camp part. We're going to have to figure out how to make Shabbat so precious without the uniqueness of camp, and Havdalah so precious without the uniqueness of camp, and learning our Torah, learning how to be Jews, learning how to be friends to each other, learning how to be the best version of ourselves, caring, loving people without the benefit of camp. We're going to have to learn how to do that on our own with the resources that we have out here in the world, knowing with confidence that, please God, this virus time will end and we will get to go back to camp. You will get to go back to camp, I certainly hope and pray, next year. So being out there in the wilderness, being arranged around the Mishkan the way the Parsha teaches was for a purpose, and we have to remember that purpose. Now, all of you are mature enough and old enough to know that your world hasn't come to an end, that the cancellation of camp this summer is for a good reason, that they can't keep you safe at camp, that even if you wouldn't get sick there, you might get infected there. And if you're infected, then you could infect somebody else and somebody else would get sick. And that could be really dangerous. And so we know there are good reasons. But I want to make sure you know that I know, that we know that you've really lost something precious. And for this summer anyway, something that can't be replaced. And if anyone tells you, nah, it's okay, it's not so bad, it is bad. It's really terrible. It's really, really terrible that you don't get to go to camp this summer. And I'm so sorry because of it. And it's also true that you're smart enough and wise enough and the world is big enough that you can take what you already know about camp and figure out how to find it and build it and live from it this summer, even without camp. And I want to help you with that. And I know Chazan Stein wants to help you with that. Call your counselors, the people who have been your counselors, the people who would be your madrichim this summer. Call them. Call your camp director. Ask your parents. Ask all the people in your lives who get it, who know about camp, and say, how can I build camp, build the love and the life and the creativity and the boldness and the bigness of camp? How do I build that into my summer, even without camp? And let's just know, let's work together and be responsible with one another to try to figure out, to try to help make it possible for camp to happen again next year. But my message is, I see you. I know you've lost something big. We're going to get through this. It'll be okay. But you've lost something. And I know that, and I'm sorry. So, as we go into a new book of the Torah, Sefer Bamidbar, Parashat Bamidbar, as we learn from the Torah how to live, how our ancestors lived in their encampment, we're going to have to learn in the encampment of our lives in virus time, the encampment of our lives without camp. And we're going to have to figure this out, and we're going to have to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, just as we would be at camp this summer. Shabbat Shalom.